history signs added this to the Chinese video. This was made by a Chinese monk at the nearby, a Zen Buddhist monk at the nearby monastery. He was an expert at building bridges. He came to Japan in 1632 and built this bridge. It's the oldest stone bridge in Japan. He was from Nanchang, Fuzhou City, Jiangxi, China. That's pretty interesting, actually. And it's named the Spectacles Bridge. Some good views of it. Very famous. Oldest stone bridge in Japan. Still usable. Pedestrian bridge. Chinese connection. I'm walking it now. Nearby, oldest Chinatown. It's right at the other end of this river. Chinese trade was coming in where he likely sailed in from. Made this bridge. That's cool. And I'm still walking on it. Wow. Whoa, whoa. It's interesting. Spectacle Bridge. There's another viewpoint you can get from down there. Let's look at it from afar one more time now that it's like saying this, if you go out there past that bridge back there into the open sea, the next thing you hit is pretty much Shanghai, China. Straight ahead, right through that way. Shanghai, Jiangsu, Zhejiang province, right around there. That's kind of interesting. Shanghai, straight ahead. Alright, 你好，朋友，唐人街，巨人，oldest Chinatown in Japan. Let's do that. Alright, 你好，朋友，唐人街，巨人，历史 oldest Chinatown in Japan from 1636. This was the only place that the Chinese were allowed to be and trade in and live in all of Japan during the Tokugawa shogunate, isolationist times of Edo. So just like Chinese, they got their own little area right here. Right over there was the only spot the Portuguese for a few years. And then the Dutch were allowed to do the same thing during this time of isolationist Japan. So this is pretty cool, but unlike the Europeans who discovered Japan kind of by accident as they blew off course the Portuguese in 1541 or something like that. As you see, the ancient old Chinese, that doesn't mean anything on my shirt. Japan has a much, much, much longer, thousands and thousands of years connection. Really, right off the coast of Nagasaki out there, Shanghai, not too far away. So they have a much, much longer connection of both good and bad times. Some really bad times. But we're going to talk about a few of those stories. I love Chinese culture. Zhongguo Wenhua is the oldest. From Chinatown in all of Japan, 1636. Probably one of the oldest in the world. The oldest in the world is in Philippines, in Manila. So this probably is up there. Top 10 oldest in the world, top 5 maybe. Maybe the second oldest. Let's tell the story. And it's cold, it's winter, so I'm gonna put a jacket on and read this off. Okay, woo, I'm excited. So the oldest Chinatown, obviously a restoration because Nagasaki was destroyed in 1945, so they kind of rebuilt this probably a little bit. But from 1636, 1641, I've heard that it could be older, from the 15th century, which is the 1400s, not the 400s. That's the 5th century. Come on, Ray. Yes, the oldest Chinatown in Japan. So the only two foreign places were to come into Japan was in Nagasaki only. starting in 1636, were the Portuguese and the Chinese. They wanted Portuguese guns, they wanted Chinese silk, and a bunch of other things probably too, silver and lots of things. But during the Tokugawa shogunate period, Japan was locked down too. The Chinese could hang out and live in this area, conduct their business, and the Portuguese and briefly then the Dutch down in that island down there, not that far away. So let's talk about this story. This an artificial island called Shinchi, literally new land. Not sure the date it started, 1636, 1641, one of the two. Let's walk through here. This used to be disconnected from the mainland, like an island. It kind of is still. There's a little river. Cool gate, like most Chinatowns have. They have some unique dishes that are only found here, influenced by Chinese too, actually. So, yeah, I'm gonna walk through there, talk about this. Very cool. I like this. So right now, in these days, Chinese and China and Japan aren't too friendly in some ways, but in a lot of ways they are. It's one of the Chinese people's favorite places to visit. It's close by. The food's delicious. The goods are good. It's the shopping's good. That's what I meant. The everything's organized and clean and nice. So actually, a lot of Chinese people, even though they don't like the history very much, recent history, 80 years ago, a lot come to Japan, for sure. So, the Chinese, unlike the Westerners on their little trading island, a couple meters down the way from here, someone eating like a Xi'an hamburger. Oh man, I gotta find some food here, but I want to tell this whole story of Japan and China history. Oh yeah, this place looks good. Whoa man, hello, ni hao. Alright, so here, wow, this was where the warehouse was. The Chinese quarter, Shinchi warehouse, Watergate, where their cargo would come from. Look at that. Cool. And a lot of the restaurants are closed because it's like the New Year for Japanese, and a lot of people take time off. Dang it, I really wanted some of this kind of food. Especially here, that would have been so cool. Alright, so the traders that had to live here from China and ship their goods here, to and from here, another place closed. Man, they had more access than the Europeans, the Portuguese, or the Dutch to freely roam around the city of Nagasaki, anywhere they wanted, which was nice for them, but they had to live here and do their trading here. That was until the 1800s, and then some curfews started at night, and then again they were totally walled into this area. Wow, this area is really cool. I want to show some of the stuff too. You get all this conflicting information. This is a pretty cool area. This is where like some warehouses were for the Chinese goods. A sign over there says the former Chinese settlement's 190 meters that way, so I guess I'll walk over there in a second. Let's keep talking about this. So Qin Shi Huang, this is in the 200s BC. He wanted to live forever, and he sent some people out every direction, east, northeast, southwest, to look for the elixir of life, including east, where there were some mysterious islands and mysterious people. Japan. Into specifics in a second, but some thousands of people were sent out here on a mission, and on the second one, they realized there's no elixir to life out here, and they thought if they go back to Chang'an, the capital, and to the emperor, telling them they didn't find the elixir to everlasting life, that they would be punished and tortured maybe. or executed. So, there was a big sea mission to go out to the east. It probably cost a lot of money to prepare that. In fact, got a bunch of people to go out. So the rumor is those people just stayed instead of coming back. They say they were lost at sea, but well, that's that bell. It's right there. That's crazy. So these thousands of people that ended up here, not exactly here, somewhere in Japan, they taught them many things like philosophy and its thought writing, which is why Japanese has part of their writing system is lots of Chinese characters. But that might have happened a little bit later, but it's thought it could have arrived way back then. So the real story is a legendary figure named Shufu. It's a real small Chinatown, but very cool, the oldest. Yeah, they're having a lantern festival. Wow, traditional clothes inside there. That's a really cool shop. Alright, so his name was Shufu, a legendary figure. And this is the end of it again. Over here on this side. Alright, Shufu was the leader and alchemist who was sent by Qin Shi Huang to the eastern seas twice to look for the elixir of life. His two journeys occurred between 219 BC and 210 BC. He even documented what people think was Mount Fuji for the first time by Chinese. So it is believed that the last fleet of Shufu carried soldiers, ship crewmen, and 3,000 virgin boys and 3,000 virgin girls and craftsmen of different fields. And he embarked on a second mission, 210 BC, and he never returned. So that's the one where they think he might have stayed. All those people, actually. And instead of facing punishment or execution, found comfort with the people in Japan, introduced writing and other philosophy, and assimilated with the people and stayed, possibly even proclaiming himself a king in some area, maybe around here in Kyushu. I even heard that he could be related, that story could be related to first emperor, legendary Japanese emperor Jimmu, but that's a little controversial. But around this time, 200 BC, is when different pottery types and metallurgy and a bunch of stuff that wasn't in Japan before this started showing up. Walking around here, all these cool shops. I'm selfieing, so people keep thinking I'm not selfieing, which is weird. I'm gonna go over here. All right, so on to some more stories. So, the distance between Japan and China, not so far. There was an ancient people in Japan called the Yaoi, Y-A-Y-O-I. And they probably mixed with the locals after immigrating from China or Korea, maybe up to 1000 BC or longer, it's thought. All right, over here was another part of the Chinese settlement. So, so over here was also part of the Chinese settlement. I'm gonna walk down here a ways away from the bustle. So the first ever documented case of confirmed Japan and Chinese connection was the year 57 during the Han Dynasty. Nearby here in northern Kyushu, a local king was recognized by the Han Emperor, I guess as like an ally or something, and he was given a golden seal. And that artifact was actually really discovered in the 1800s, verifying that that really did happen, which is kind of cool. Then in the 200s AD, during the Warring States period, Chinese visitors to Japan were told by people living around here in Kyushu, near where something called the Kingdom of Wu was, which is around modern day Shanghai and Zhejiang and Jiangsu. Alright, there's one more gate over here. So they were saying that they migrated at some point. You know, there's a lot of things that aren't documented. Of course, fishermen, traders, things that no one ever knew happened. Probably happened over here. Wow, there's something crazy over here. This was a cool find. I'm glad I walked over here. So this is a Chinese temple recreation built after 1950, of course, after the bombing, but the original was from 1689. Crazy. The Sugar Road through Kyushu. Wow, I love Chinese temples. That's the old Chinese settlement. This one says started in 1689, 1691, under government permission by residents from the Fujian province of China. The shrine was rebuilt after its destruction in a fire, blah, blah, blah. Found a 1691 built originally Chinese temple over here for the Chinese community, oldest Chinatown in Japan. That's pretty cool. God, I feel so rushed to tell this story. Don't want to make this video too long, but this is really cool over here. All right, well, where are we in this Chinese-Japan connection? 200s AD. There were some customs noted for some people in Japan, like eating raw fish, that went out of style in China, actually. And building similar burial mounds like the cofuns, and some other things that the people of Wu also did, the Kingdom of Wu. And in the records of Wei, another ancient Chinese kingdom, former Chinese quarter map right there. There's actually a few more things that are pretty cool that I didn't know about. Wish I had more time here. It's just, does anybody know that this exists in China? Who knew this was here? Some people probably, but okay. There's another interesting story of someone from something called the Kingdom of Wei, W-E-I, of describing a Japanese shaman woman. And she came to China, I guess, in her homeland. There's some interesting details to this story, and she was probably something called the Yamatai people, which was a mispronunciation of Yamato, which was the old capital of where Nara was from the first emperor. And she described her homeland as a place with hundreds of states. All right, fast forward 600 and 900 AD, during the Sui and Tang dynasties. Japan sent many students to China for several purposes, and many ideas were brought back then. More likely a major influencer on the writing, philosophy, culture, definitely Buddhism that time, I think, was brought from China to Japan. Also, it's thought Korea was involved in that, the dissolution, I think it's called, of Buddhism. More likely than the Qin Shi Huang story of Du Fu, but maybe not. Maybe it was a little bit of both. No pissing. Students, these, or monks, or young people that from Japan, that were sent to China, came home after years of study and brought all kinds of things and ideas like writing and philosophy, Buddhism. I talked about that imperial government style that they were excellent at doing in China for a very long time before And this was around the time when, Kyoto started getting going. The ancient capital of Japan and all their glory and Japanese heights of culture kind of started. That is known, at least. So, other things, like Kyoto, the city planning of Kyoto was done in feng shui, built to have the same design as the Chinese capital Chang'an. And also other city planning, dress as well. The Japanese kimono, the famous Japanese kimono, is thought to be influenced by the Tang Dynasty's imperial clothing that they would wear. And there's a ton of people lining up right here. So this must be a really good restaurant. Whoa. Good food in there. So many, many, many more stories as the centuries go on, of wars and alliances, mostly involving the different Korean kingdoms, actually. I've walked past here before, involving the different Korean kingdoms. 663 AD is the first ever confirmed battle between Japan and China. And it was on the Korean peninsula. The Yamato Japanese, fresh off experience battling the Ainu people of Hokkaido, backing one Korean faction, and the Tang Chinese another, like the Silla, Goryeo, Bakje. And man, I've researched all this stuff. Never released those videos. Anyways, the Korean videos I hope to release someday soon too. So fast forward, I'm going to pass up the Mongol history because I'm going to talk about that in Fukuoka, the Yuan dynasty. But Japanese pirates, that's a whole nother interesting story. So they're mostly from this area, Kyushu, known as the Wukuo, or Japanese dwarfs. From the 1300s to 1600s, they were a thorn in the side of China for a long time, especially southern China. People from the undesirable parts of Civil War Japanese society actually were not only Japanese, but they recruited all kinds of other Asians, including Chinese too. So they weren't always Japanese pirates, but sometimes. Ooh, dumplings. But yes, this was the time when Portuguese started coming into this region here, and yeah, my baseball team's hat, that was nice. This area is very interesting. So around the time this started getting going, and because of all that trouble from the Japanese pirates and instability in Japan, Ningbo, Zhejiang was the only place Japanese traders were allowed to go. Hello. Funny little kid looking at me. That was the only place Japanese traders were allowed to go. Kind of like soon this was the only place Chinese traders were allowed to go when this was built up. Or a little bit down that way too. I'm not sure exactly. This might be a little bit newer. Well, all of it's newer because of the, bombing. 1945. It's a whole different story. But yeah, that was during the Ming Dynasty of China. So 1592, 93, and then 1598, Toyama Hideyoshi, unifier of Japan, infamously in the eyes of the Koreans, had dreams of conquering Ming China actually. But he had to go through Korea, and they refused him access, leading to a terrible war in Korea. That saw many of their citizens killed, cultural relics burned to the ground like the palace in Seoul. And the Ming Chinese eventually came down to their aid, especially in the second invasion in 1598, and that invasion failed. So that was another not so friendly part of the connection. Okay, we're getting too involved with Korean history and stuff happening in mainland and ancient stories. But it's all intertwined. So during the time of the wars in Korea is when clamping down on the foreign exchange with Japan was limited just to here, Nagasaki. Actually, yeah, it was right, pretty much right around that same time, or right after that. That's crazy. So down there behind me was where just for a few years only the Portuguese were limited to, then the Dutch, and then the Chinese had their little spot to trade just here. And it was this Chinatown from the early 1600s all the way until the opening up of Japan in the 1850s, where the only connection of China and Japan was right on this spot. All trade. Pretty crazy. Let's finish this out where it began. Oldest Chinatown in Japan. So many more events that are all more well documented. During the Meiji Restoration, they got more advanced and more powerful, especially militarily than Japan. Closed off Japan was. Then closed off Qing Dynasty China was. Distracted there. The Meiji Restoration, Japan, a much more powerful politically, with technology and all around, than Qing Dynasty China, who was still kind of closed off and dominated by Western powers during the century of humiliation, like the British and stuff like that. This Opium Wars. Then more wars like the Sino-Japanese War, Taiwan being ceded to Japan, foreign influence, Russia defeat by Japan off the waters off of Kyushu, between here and Korea, actually not too far from here. The Russians had a Port Arthur, which is now in Heilongjiang, China. So they were all involved there. Japanese helping suppress the Boxer Rebellion in 1900, technological advances, and infamously World War II, which that didn't start with Hitler and Germany, but really the Japanese invasion of warlord-held Manchuria in 1931, which is really the start of World War II. They called it the Second Sino-Japanese War, but it turned into the Japanese World War II Pacific Theater, including horrible medical tests and like freezing people to death, testing twins, all kinds of horrible stuff they did. The 1937 Battle of Shanghai, infamously the rape of Nanking, and so much more, including the initial reason that Japan is getting dark right at the end, but that's how it goes. There was very friendly times when this thing was thriving. Not very friendly, actually. They were limited to here, but okay. So much more in World War II. Like the initial reason Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and the surprise attack of the U.S. Navy was mainly because of the American oil embargo on Japan, because of their actions in China in the 1930s, which America was pretty cool with at that time. So had a good relationship, because they just went democratic, which only lasted a little while, but maybe that had something to do with it. So that's the whole reason why America got into the war. What a long history, connection of two peoples, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And we all know that controversial, horrible war that was horrible definitely to China, that a lot of people don't know about. You think about many other things, Jewish concentration camps, of course, that's horrible. Russians think about the Russian invasion of the Eastern Front. Americans think about American stuff like D-Day and fighting in the Pacific, Iwo Jima, Pearl Harbor. Well, the Chinese, they think about all the crazy stuff that happened in the attempt to invade and capture all of China, which they technically never did. So we know how that all ended, World War II. ending was right here also. Nagasaki, the American dropping, August 9th, 1945, 11:02, the last atomic bomb on this city. Oldest Chinatown in Japan. Very cool. That's it. Whew. Kind of ended that video at kind of a crazy point. This was 79 years ago. I hope to get this at a restaurant. This is a dish. Champon. There's another one. Sera udon. 79 years ago. Still a tough situation for some people, especially in China. You know, then you have the Taiwan connection with Japan. They were a colony from 1895 to 1945. Chinese culture also. Well, obviously, there's lots of trade, for sure. And lots of things going on. Some contention on different sides to some geopolitical things. So there's a lot of tourism. You know, a lot of connection through history, man. Some bad, but a lot good. Including like here. So let's end this on a positive note. Hope to get some good food in Japan, oldest Chinatown. Zaijian. Now, since 1980, that was super good. Trying a lot of these places are opening now. And it looks beautiful in here at night. Look at that. Champon and Sera udon. Udon Sera, both dishes developed and popular only here in Chinatown, Nagasaki. That was crazy. That's like those Hong Kong noodles. Oh, it has another noodle too. Whoa. A lot of these places are opening now. And it looks beautiful in here at night. Look at that. Just got done with that awesome food. 2 local dishes developed here in this Chinatown. Champon and udon sera. This awesome place right here. I like the music, the vibes here. Really good. Very interesting history. Wow, look at the lights back there. So yeah, in modern genetic analysis of Japanese people, they have an admixture from East Asia somewhere and the local indigenous peoples. So at some point, waves of people, maybe it was from the Shinchi, 6,000 or 10,000 people that came with Shufu. Maybe it was during different times, like the Tang Dynasty, Sui Dynasty. Maybe it was 1000 BC, 10,000 BC, ancient history. They mixed and created the Japanese people from the mainland Asia and the islands of Japan, the local tribal people that were here, you know, for like 30,000 years originally. So there's always will be a connection there, man. Always. It's just clear back there. I hate how this phone does that. Oh well. Found someone to practice some Chinese with in here. They speak Mandarin. I didn't ask where they're from, but I speak Japanese too, obviously. This was something awesome she had. I ate a lot of food already, but let's have it again. Oh my god.
Can I say something? Doing the same thing.
There, got one more snack and got to practice some Mandarin Chinese. The lady said she's from Shandong, working here. She knows Japanese. That was cool. Got some very tasty snacks from her. This was a very interesting experience. And got a beer too. Sing Tao. Hey! Show the beer. That thing was cool. Also from Shandong. this looks pretty good at night. But all this is new. What I learned through all this time thinking and eating, and oh my god, this looks amazing. Oh. That was crazy. Different bows and pork bows. I just ate actually, but so this actually was part of the island where the warehouses were for the Chinese people coming in with their boats, getting off their gear, that kind of stuff. Wasn't a bunch of restaurants, shops like it is now. I'm gonna go inside this one. Pretty cool what they got going on here. So, it's modern Nagasaki, obviously. A lot of restaurants, lots of places serving the same kind of thing. The old cuisine. The real, I guess, homes of the Chinese people were like down there a little ways. They had a recreation temple I saw earlier. Looks good at night. Place. Definitely. Ooh, they're taking a big photo.
Dirapetin ya, biar kanan kirinya dapat.
Bahasa. Good. Happy New Year. Shinyan Kwaila from the oldest Chinatown in Japan. That was interesting. Down here, there's an even better view. Oldest stone bridge, Japan, 1624 or something like that. So that's 400 years old. Nagasaki, still here, baby. 1834. That was close. Very famous bridge. Looks a little nicer daytime. That's alright. At least I got to it. Oldest stone bridge in Japan. 390 years old. Nagasaki, it was fun. Did a lot of exploring. This is Japan's oldest stone bridge. About 400 years old. Survived to this day. A lot of crazy stuff has happened in the city, so that's kind of amazing. And Nagasaki, you were a good one. Interesting. Right there. I want to cross this thing, but he is posted. Looking at the bridge.